Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. I'm Jeff Huckaby, and first of all, I want to thank Paul and the Atlanta ATUG for having me here. 3 years ago, I was actually on the other side of the fence, and then I decided to join the dark side with Tableau. So I lead the global industry segment of retail and consumer goods at Tableau. And so when Paul asked if I could actually, one, I'm going to be in town. I always want to come to the TUG. It always seems like we're somewhere all over the world at some point in time. So it's great to be here today. And so just a little bit about my background. I grew up in Tennessee and was there for a long time, then jumped around to Arizona, back to North Carolina, then been here in Georgia for about 3 years. I have 2 kids. Both those kids are in high school. So fun times, right? So I'm glad to be here because they're actually home on break. And so, but anyway, spent 20 years in the industry doing BI and advanced analytics. Got a background, a master's in accountancy. So I'm neurotic about numbers and ROI. So you'll see I'm actually going to share some of that with you guys today, even if it is within a retail context, no matter what industry you're in. Hopefully you'll be able to get some different ideas. So that's what I want to try to convey to you guys today. Speak a lot with financial services organizations, even though I'm retail, because a lot of times there's some good cross-industry collaboration there. Wasn't always about Tableau. I'm going to tell you my Tableau story. About 10 years ago, it was about 5:30 in the afternoon. I called my wife, said, "Hey, I'll be home in 30 minutes. I'm going to leave the office." I flipped my phone over. It was on Do Not Disturb, and I downloaded Tableau Desktop, connected to the world's largest, at that point in time, the world's second largest OLAP database. We had about 20 terabytes of data compressed into a massive OLAP queue. We had sub-second response time that supported 40,000 people, and we were never down in the 6 years I was there. And we were online 24/7, just based on the business. And so, connected Tableau, started playing around. 4 hours later, I flipped my phone over. There's 10 missed calls, there's text messages, "Are you dead? Oh my God, what's going on?" And I called back and said, "I downloaded something called Tableau, connected to the data, started learning." She's like, "Get home." I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." You know. So that was my Tableau story. We're still married today, so that's great. So what we can talk a little bit about today is we can touch on some retail trends that we're seeing. Very humbled that we get a lot of opportunities to talk with some of the top retail and consumer goods companies around the world, and not just massive enterprises, but also small, very innovative. And so we're going to bring a lot of information, and then also from a partner perspective, a lot of things that we're seeing in the marketplace. And you'll see some of these key themes kind of go across different industries as well. And then I'm going to share a few interesting use cases with the group. Then I thought we'd jump into our 2019 roadmap. There's something that I want to show you guys, but we can't. But what we'll do is I will extend the invitation to Paul that we'll have Adam's here. He's a Tableau rock star. Raise your hand. Yeah, he's a Tableau rock star as well. So make sure you pick his brain. He's incredible. Him and his twin brother are actually both great. Even though they're University of South Carolina fans, so that we'll forgive them for that. But there's something that's coming out, and we'll probably show it during the keynote of our conference in November. And so we'll come back and do a deep dive after we do that. And it's pretty amazing. I don't get that geeked out in 20 years. You've seen everything. A lot of stuff just regurgitates itself, right? This is something I'm very, very excited about. So I wish I could do that. I am going to kind of get into a deep dive and show Ask Data. You all have heard of Ask Data. Okay, it's about half the room. That's great. And then I'm actually going to do a deep dive of the new mobile capabilities as well. Okay, so I'm showing live data on guest Wi-Fi at a hospital. I'm sure Murphy's Law will happen, but we're going to try it anyway. So we'll see what happens. So I got to show this slide, right? We're all about helping people see and understand data. That's our mission from day one, and this will be our mission for the next 2 or 3 decades. And so, but some of the ways that we're doing that's kind of changing a little bit. And I'll be honest, when I first downloaded Tableau, I just thought it was another desktop tool, another UI tool, right? I had backgrounds with MicroStrategy, the early Power BI stuff from a MicroStrategy perspective, or I'm sorry, Microsoft perspective. MicroStrategy, Cognos, Panorama, just you name it. And I didn't really get the connection and how Tableau does things differently, okay? And I didn't realize this until we heard Christian Chabot, one of our founders, a couple of years ago. The drag and drop capability that's inside of Tableau, it's actually infinite, the amount of visualizations you can create. Okay, I didn't realize that. The way they built the code base, going back 15 years ago, and it's still in the tool, it's theoretically infinite with how many visualizations you can create. So all the incredible creativity that we're seeing in the community, we're going to keep seeing that. And so to me, that excites me because I think that we're going to raise the overall kind of, analytics, if you will. And we're seeing that in retail for sure. So I've got 2 marketing slides. This one and the next slide, okay? So sorry, I'm part of product marketing, and then we're done with that stuff, okay? We are very excited to be in the Magic Quadrant for the 7th consecutive year, in the Leaders Quadrant. And one thing that out of the entire study, if you read, the thing going back to my background as an accountant, is we enable people to drive business results. And that should be what we're about, right? We're also personal outcomes from a healthcare perspective. But out of the NRF top 100 retailers, we announced in January at the National Retail Federation conference that 85% are customers of the top 100, and all of the top 25 are customers. And we have over 8,000 retail and consumer goods companies around the world that are customers. So even though we do great financial services and retail and all these different verticals, the growth that we've had within retail has been pretty amazing. So it's great to be a part of that. In the room, if you're in retail, could you raise your hand? You got a few, and that's awesome. So this rest of this presentation is just for you guys. Everybody else, no, I'm joking. So a couple things that we're seeing from a 2019 retail analytics trends is customer metrics are starting to take focus. And it's really funny that all the time, every organization you talk to, customers central to everything you do. Okay, do you know who your customer are? Who they are? Maybe, yes or no. Are you doing analytics around your customer? Sometimes yes or no. Right? Do you have a customer master? Sometimes yes or no. And it's like, yeah, but customer's everything. And the good news about retail and some of the digital disruption that we've seen in the industry over the last, probably 5-10 years, really seen it in the last 5 years, is had to focus. Retail is always about the product. Product is in the center of the universe. Every interaction was around, if I get the right product, the right place, and the right price, people will buy it. And now the customer expectation is, I want to buy what I want to buy, where I want to buy it, how I want to buy it, how I want to experience it. And so if you hear things, for those non-retailers in the room, there's an industry buzzword by the name of omnichannel, okay, or unified commerce. Basically what it is taking the product out of the center of the universe and putting the customer there. So, no easy task, right? So like all that technology and all those systems, and sometimes that's 25 years of legacy code, COBOL code in some instances, right? Still running to enable that type of ecosystem. And so people are switching that out all across the world. The customer metrics, we're starting to see things, Net Promoter Score, and we're really starting to see people actually start to listen to the customer. It's really easy to take data from social channels, from emails. We even have a partner by the name of VoiceBase that takes data from the call center, processes that information for categorization, sentiment. They even know if you call into a call center with one of their customers, if I'm the agent and you ask me a question and I sit there for 30 seconds looking for the answer, they're measuring that. And then they're using that to see if they need to retrain the call center people. And so all this data is being collected, it's being classified, and now people are starting to use these firsthand with sales. Because within retail, they care about sales. What we sell about, what we did year over year, same store sales, All those are important metrics, but now you're starting to see those come together with more customer metrics as well. So artificial intelligence goes to work across the organization, providing tangible benefits. One of the case studies that we have actually in this, and you can actually go out to tableau.com, the URL there, and actually download it and read it. If you do it and like it, great. If you let me know, I'd love to hear the feedback. If you hate it, I'd love to hear that too. So appreciate that. But one of the things in there that we talk about is we talk about how artificial intelligence, a couple years ago, yeah, we're doing AI, what are we doing? We don't know. We've got to figure something out. We're actually starting to see some really cool use cases where people are doing things like product allocation. Okay, how many desalted waters do I need to put into a store in a given location? And we did a fascinating webinar with a company in Sony Home Entertainment last January, and they sell the DVDs and movies and games and all that you see in Targets and Walmarts. And what they're doing is they're using AI to figure out, or actually machine learning, figure out based on thousands of attributes exactly how many of the movies, maybe it's the new Spider-Man release, how many need to go on the shelf and across. And they're using visual analytics, Tableau on top of that, and they're right there in the store, they're right there at the shelf within a Walmart, and they're trying to figure that out, okay? And they're looking at that and making decisions. The other example, which was incredible, they actually presented at our conference and also at the NRF conference as well, was Home Depot. And Home Depot, actually, their blinds.com business, if you buy blinds, and if for any reason whatsoever, if you don't like them, if the shade was different, if the type, if the style was slightly different, 100% money-back guarantee, that's a remake. And so they've gotten really good about using machine learning and AI to figure out how do they're actually starting to predict and then give these predictions to their vendors on, maybe 6% of the transactions may be wrong. And so they're figuring that out and then predicting when the vendors need to fix problems that they may run into with their customers. So it's pretty amazing that we went from concept now pretty rapidly to production pretty quickly from an artificial intelligence perspective. Next, for those in retail, we'll read this, and every industry has their own kind of version of this, but daily flash sales reporting finally evolves. For a long time, the end workers, the stores, okay, or even vendors, right, get a copy of different reporting. It could be grid-based reporting, it could be PDFs, it could be an Excel, dump into Excel. And so we're starting to see that evolve now, where people particularly are utilizing mobility at pretty massive scale. Mobile BI was hot about 5 or 6 years ago. Organizations went out, they bought thousands of iPads, they handed them over to their friends in IT, said, hey, we want to roll these out. IT looked back at the business and said, what do you want to put on? Like, well, we don't know. Okay, what else? And so that whole ecosystem, right? The infrastructure, the wireless infrastructure, the mobile device management has really matured to the point now we're starting to see some really massive mobile deployments. And I think that's just going to continue to accelerate. But we're also seeing natural language generation, and I've got an example of that I'll show you, which I'll just show it right now. And this is pretty amazing. This is one of our partners. So it's going to redraw there. So this is a Tableau visualization, and I think about 6 months ago, we came out with something called dashboard extensions, where we allowed for applications to run inside of Tableau. Okay, you always embed Tableau inside of other applications, but we never let people into our house. Now we're letting people into our house a bit. And so the narrative that you see there is generated automatically. And so this is actually with one of our partners, Automated Insights. And if I go and interact with this is live data, and we'll see this, 2001, 2002. What it did was it actually read the underlying data that made up the visualization through an API connected to Automated Insights, their API, rewrote the narrative based on the data that I have selected, and then it actually writes the narrative and presents it back inside of the dashboard. 2 seconds. That's not trickery. I actually blamed Automated Insights of Blackmagic doing caching. That's pretty cool. You used to have analysts that would take results and take hours on a Monday afternoon and type up narratives for the executive, okay? Now, this is where things like, AI and machine learning start to help us do our job a little bit better, right? And so we're actually starting to see things like this deployed at pretty massive scale to help with what's called from a data literacy perspective. So as analytics and more gets in the hands of people that may not be very analytical, now all of a sudden they can take this, a store manager can read this, and not be intimidated with maybe some visual analytics as well. So something that we're very kind of interested in, and we think toward the latter half of this year, is everyone has a cell phone, right? And you're already starting to see the promise of 5G, right? And so something that this is going to allow, a lot of times the bandwidth at a store isn't very good. And so with 5G, what it's going to allow, like with very low latency. So basically, the time that a request goes across the network is latency. And right now within stores, latency is between about 100 to 300 milliseconds, which is actually a long time. And so with 5G, what we think is going to happen is now all of a sudden, video analytics is going to become a thing. Okay? People can already recognize if you walk into this room, if the video cameras were set up, and we've kind of seen this with Amazon Go, where they know exactly what group of people that you're in, they know what you pick up, they know what you put back on the shelf, and they're calculating all that in real time. And if you've never been in one of the Amazon Go stores, like in Seattle, go. It's unbelievable. And one thing that's kind of scary, you actually walk out, you don't pay, it dings your phone 30 seconds later, you feel like you shoplifted. The first time I did it, I felt dirty. But my kids had stuff, I had stuff, my wife had stuff, and we walked out and it was perfect. And it was on the app, and within 15 seconds of walking out of that store down the road, guess what? It hit my app, and it was perfect. And we tried to trick it. Try to hide things, try to put it back, and we couldn't do it. And so, that's kind of the things that we're going to start to see. So we think about, how do you visualize that data? How do you visualize, being able to see that on a video, if I walk in, I'm wearing a pair of Nikes, and then the second time I come back, I'm wearing a different kind of Nikes, well, maybe I've got a brand affinity for Nike. That's new information we're going to have. Now, from a privacy perspective, right, it's scary, but it's already scary. I think Google adds about 250 new data points about us every day. Think about that. So there's going to be, and the technology already exists. What we didn't have was that bandwidth going to the stores. And so now we've got that, and it's going to be in spades. So I think that's going to be pretty transformational. And then lastly, number 5, part of that is inventory awareness is taken to new levels. Take a guess. If you walk into any store, what do you think that their average inventory accuracy is? So 100% is perfect. So 85%? 98%? Who said 60? You win. Yeah, there was a study by the University of the RFID team at the University of Auburn, and the average accuracy was 60. Okay? And so now, I talked a little bit about omni-channel, right? How many times have you ordered something online, pick it up in the store, you walk in, sorry, we didn't have that. Our system was bad. Okay? I can tell you, I've done that a couple times. I've never went back. I don't trust them. You have to be at 100%. So there's actually some really cool technology now that's coming out with machine learning. There's a lot of robotics companies that can actually count the inventory accuracy within 98%. So you jump from 60 to 98%, that's a massive difference. And they can tell the depth on a shelf. So now when you order online, you've got more confidence. Okay? Not only that, but let's think about this. they're collecting all this information, exactly the position of where it is, right? And so now you pick up your phone, you walk in, I want that box of Cheez-Its that my son wants, okay? He's a freshman, he loves Cheez-Its. Stupid scenario. But I pick up my phone through augmented reality now, it will point me exactly where it is. And some people are already starting to do that. But imagine when we get the inventory accuracy up to that point, right? And now all of a sudden we can start to take the slack out of the supply chains. So, any questions about this? Sure.
On the natural language generation in Tableau, you guys are using automated insights. Did you explore any other vendors? And maybe if you did, can you speak to the benefits of one versus the other?
Yes and no. Okay. I won't compare the vendors just because everybody's our friends. But I will talk a little bit about, so natural language processing, there's basically two things. There's natural language query. Okay, so being able to ask questions in natural language, I'll actually demonstrate that today. Then natural language generation, so what you saw there. Out of the natural language generation, we have quite a few partners that do that. The two, I'd say, kind of big ones in that space is automated insights and narrative science. Now, they both have different approaches to it. And what we say to our customers is, hey, just do a proof of concept with both. See what you like, see what you don't like. One has a little bit more customization than the other. The other, it's a little easier to get started. And it just really depends on your organization. So, yeah, good question. Now, the natural language query, we'll address that as part of Ask Data, which just came out last week. So, any other questions before we move on? All right. So, I wanted just to share a couple things, and there's definitely some themes that kind of go along with this. And our friends at Pepsi, they improved, and one thing that I would stand by this, the 80 to 90%, I saw this personally, kind of in my career. When we shifted to Tableau, we actually replaced 30,000 MicroStrategy reports in a week and a half with 32 visualizations. 2 people. And that was like 15, 18 years of just legacy reporting, a lot of really bad reports. But, who can manage that type of ecosystem? And you as a user, how do you know what to use? And so, but they improved their reporting build time by over 90%. The thing that I want to talk about is a lot of times when you see this type of savings, it's not an employee reduction. People can actually do their job. They can be analysts. They can go and in Pepsi's case, they actually had more time to spend on their advanced forecasting algorithm. And when they did, they actually started to deny orders. And they denied a $1.1 million order. And their customer said, why'd you do that? And it's like, you ordered way too much. You can't sell all this in enough time, and here's why. And it blew the customer away. It's like, we don't have that type of sophistication. You guys are doing that for us. So it made the relationship better. And so we're starting to see this type of, retailer, supplier, vendor type of using visual analytics at pretty massive scale instead of just EDI transactions for those in the room that are over the age of 30, right? And so, because I mentioned Pepsi in Atlanta, I have to mention Coca-Cola, right? I think we've got 86,000 customers now, and so it's great. But yeah, we've got to be real careful. That's why I'm real careful with the vendor question as well. And so this is actually really cool. So for 25 years, Coca-Cola, or not Coca-Cola, but Walmart has something that's called Retail Link. And Retail Link is basically kind of think of a data dump of information where you can subscribe to it. They aggregate it at, I think, the weekly level or maybe even day level for some customers. And Coke needed the raw by-minute data from Walmart. And what they did was Walmart gave them a massive Tableau data extract every week. It's about 150 gig of weekly data. They would actually share it with them through a secure box, and they call it Dropbox or Box. And then the Coca-Cola team, that manages the Walmart account would actually create visualizations. Then they would take that back to Walmart and say, hey, the world's a little bit different than what we thought. Particularly with order online, pick up in store, completely changed the way that they have to fulfill the store. And it was completely counter than what they thought. But they actually took around some actions. And if you want to know if this is real, Walmart never lets you talk about them at all, period. Okay? They actually blessed Coca-Cola to come to our conference to talk about this. Why do you think that's? Because as soon as Coca-Cola presented this, Pepsi said, we want to do it. Well, a bunch of other vendors said, hey, we want to go do this. And just in the first 13 weeks of this program, they reduced lost sales by over $20 million, okay, which is real money. And so it's pretty amazing. But being able to actualize down at that very granular, detailed information, and then share what they learned visually. And this is data that's been there for years, but it was at a different level of aggregation. It was really hard to see, and now that they could see things in the data and then take action on it. So, Chipotle. A year ago, January, they weren't a customer of ours. They were a MicroStrategy shop. They were a Power BI shop. No Tableau, zero. They did a 40-hour proof of concept, and from that 40-hour proof of concept, they had complete visibility across their entire store chain that they didn't have before. Okay, so they went from 0 to over 1,000 people using Tableau within the first 3 months. The CEO would use Tableau with their board, okay, in 3 months, which is amazing. It's unheard of, right? And then they consolidated over 100 different data sources into Tableau. So it's pretty amazing that you go in, do that from a proof of concept, and we hear this all the time. Just quickly on REI, one thing that I thought was really cool was how, and they're not on here, but the slide that you don't see up here is Gander Mountain. Everybody remember Gander Mountain? Okay. I guess about, 2 years ago, we were there on site, brand new CIO. We went and talked to him, and the CIO said it's unbelievable to us that they don't have the business doesn't have the visibility to see what's happening on the business. It's crazy. Okay. Everybody in here is BI. What happened was they were trying to make the world perfect. It was a lot of 15 years have been of trying to do things one way, not doing it different at all. I left that meeting and I texted my wife. I said, hey, I think our oldest son Wyatt's got a gift card, right? He goes, yeah. I said, he needs to go spend it. A year after that meeting, they declared bankruptcy. But we can see, we did an internal study, and I wish we could publish it. And this is, don't repeat this back at the home office, right? A modern analytics strategy matters, okay? And I'm not just talking about buy Tableau and your world will be great. But thinking different about how you enable people with data across the organization matters. And we see it with retailers all the time. And a lot of retailers, right, that are struggling, go back and look at their data strategy. If their data strategy is shit, guess what? Their financial performance is. So it's not rocket science. Now, maybe that's not necessarily causation, but there's a very strong correlation between those two things. And we see it constantly. And those retailers that are doing really well in the market, we know firsthand that they've changed their analytics strategy to more of a modern, more agile, getting getting data in the hands of the right people that can make business decisions. And I wish we could publish that because it was pretty eye-opening, but it's something that we just did internally. But it matters. We see it all the time. REI. One thing, older company, been around for a long time, but they started to reinvent themselves around analytics. And now you're starting to see the fruits of the labor of that. And the one thing I just wanted to point out with this was we were talking with Leslie Han, who's over retail at IPC. And she writes a lot of great stuff around retail. She goes, you know what? Yeah, it's funny you mentioned REI. Every retailer in the world struggles with discounting. And when I went back and I looked at my end-of-year review with REI, I realized I paid full price for everything, for almost everything. She goes, I've never done that. But they got a lot better knowing her. and doing from a digital marketing perspective, getting her to do it. And so it's like, this is, it's real and it's tangible. I won't go through this long list, but I did want to point out that we've had everything from an intern at a large retailer. We've got over 600,000 students right now at universities around the world learning Tableau, which is incredible. And we had an intern at a large retailer. They weren't a Tableau customer. She downloaded desktop. She had it, I guess, on her school laptop, connected directly to the accounts receivable database, found something kind of interesting, 10 million. She's like, hey, took it, showed her boss. They couldn't believe it. They went back and they looked at all the reports, and it was something that was coded 20 years ago, and it fell through the cracks. They had 10 million outstanding accounts receivable. They didn't know it was on the books. I don't know if they hired her or not. Hopefully they got her a really good dinner or something like that. But, that's one person. And so that's what I like is people that can, even an intern, can have a pretty big impact on an organization. Just one person doing things kind of the right way. A global CPG customer reduced their working capital by over $200 million just by finally visualizing the complete end-to-end supply chain back to the manufacturing process. It was a 6-month project, and they freed up that much working capital. Keiho, a Japanese retailer down below, they're known for fresh flowers. They just focused on their top 50 vendors and said, we're going to put the data on Tableau Online, we're going to collaborate with visual analytics, and we're just the top 50. They reduced their inventory by over 50% and increased sales at the same time. That's the magic formula for retail, right? And so just by doing that, those small things. 2 other stories I thought were pretty good. One retailer has discovered through A/B testing that they can actually get you to buy more if the temperature is within a certain range. Yeah, so we think that we go things and we go into different areas and we're not bombarded by marketing and all kinds of things. The next time you think it's a little harder with it cold, that may or may not be data-driven decision there, which is pretty amazing. And then second, there was another that saved $6 million. We heard these stories like almost within a week. IoT sensors on the HVAC equipment, and they figured out that through predictive maintenance, they could actually save more money than just waiting for things to break. And so that was a quick $6 million win for them as well. So this is an example of things that we hear, different things across kind of different organizations or different departments, and just this isn't all inclusive, but these are things that we've heard from different customers. Some are public facing, some are not. I just wanted to kind of give you, basically if there is data in the organization, there's usually a use case or something that we've heard about. Once you take a photo. You got it? All right. I'll give you the slides too. Some. The other thing which is kind of amazing and kind of this is kind of good as we transition to show you guys some things of where we're going in 2019. Some of I've always been enamored, particularly as a customer for our joint Tableau, but with scale. And for some of the older people in the room, we've heard about pervasive BI for 2 decades now, right? Our CEO now calls it analytics ubiquity. But it's kind of amazing now that we're actually starting to hear about, and don't tweet this out. We've got one financial services customer. Yeah, please don't tweet this out. They're actually deploying over 3 million people. Okay, and then we had a top 10 retailer talk at our conference, and they just mentioned that 450,000 registered Tableau users, hundreds of cores, 2 million sessions per month, 1,500 published data sources, and then 500,000 extracts per month. That's one running every minute, which is incredible. And so I always laugh when we talk to retailers that have done the same thing for the last 20 years and they're struggling in the market. I'm like, yeah, but we're going to roll this out to 2,000 people on Tableau at scale. It's like, really? Okay. How many hundreds of thousands are we rolling out to? Hundreds of thousands, just 2,000 people. It's like, okay. If you get to this level, we'll hook you up with them, make sure you've got your architecture right. But it's crazy. Sometimes the built-in excuses that we kind of make for ourselves. Sorry, I'm from Tennessee, I'm preaching a little bit. So a lot of these use cases, or some of them, there's a lot more out there, videos, all kinds of things are out on tableau.com/retail. We did come out with 12 powerful retail dashboards. These are real dashboards. These are things that were made by different partners. I would love for customers to be a part of this process at some point. It's a little harder for that, particularly with customer data and things of that nature. But be sure to check this out. If there's something that you like, let me know. Also, we've got a retail community. A lot of people may not know that this is out there, but if you go out in community.tableau.com/group/retail, join the community. Particularly for the 5 or 6 retail people that are here, I expect you to log in tonight, later on. We also have a virtual retail users group. It's global by nature, and the next meeting is going to be Thursday on the 28th. And so we have that information out on, and that's not a bad URL. The P in group is missing. I'm not exactly sure why, but that is the right URL. And we'll make sure you guys get this as well. We'd love to have you join that group. Also led by Kevin Keene from Coca-Cola Bottling out in Charlotte, Karen Henson here from Atlanta, and she's part of the ATUG, and Parker Dillon from Root Guild. Before we jump into kind of the roadmap stuff, I do want to just make sure that for those, not just retail, but if you have a really cool story, we're going to start the call for speakers in April of 2019. So for those that went to conference, yes, we've already started planning conference again. It never stops. We expect north of, I think about 19 to 20,000 people there this year, which is pretty amazing. And we had, for the 3rd year in a row, we had a pretty robust retail track. So a lot of incredible, really innovative, very inspiring use cases, from small organizations to massive global organizations as well. So product roadmap. On the next slide, if you don't mind, no photos, that would be great. My wife and kids love to eat, and we'd love to keep that going the same way. But over the last 12 months, we've actually pretty big pattern of innovation, right? Every quarter we release new features. And so we released Hyper in January 2018. Seems like that was about 2 or 3 years ago. Pretty amazing. 80% of their customers now run Hyper. We also released Linux, and 25% of all server installs are actually on Linux, which is pretty amazing. Then we also came out with Viz and Tooltips. Who in the room is using Viz and Tooltips? Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. Hopefully it's working well for you. In April, we came out with 2018.1, which was enhancements with web authoring. We also then, that was a famous release because we released Tableau Prep. Feedback there has been really good. The product team for Tableau Prep, that's a way, think of it as just any type of data manipulation, data prep itself. And then we also have some machine learning built in where we can clean data and do things like that really easy, and visually. A lot of mobile device management support for large enterprises, and then dashboard starters as well that we saw come with Tableau Online. .2 release, and so we changed the naming convention also last year as well. And so that way you know if it's .1, .2, that's the second quarter. It was, we're close to the second quarter. It doesn't always hit, but we try. Came out with dashboard extensions, and then also the gallery. There's been over 25,000 downloads. And for the question about the natural language processing, you can actually go out there and download both the Narrative Science and Automated Insights extension and try it out for yourselves. And then Tableau Services, Services Manager, which is a IT admin. You're in the right spot when your IT administration geeks out over Tableau Services Manager being released. And then some things around spatial joins that were finally added to the product. And then in October came out sections, heat maps, and normalized extracts as well. So it takes us to, for those that have been customers for a while, we've really transformed the organization pretty dramatically. From a desktop tool to now a tool that is a complete platform end to end. And so that actually has components of collaboration analytics, content discovery, governance, data prep, and data access. And so we're going to talk about a couple of those things and kind of our key themes that we're looking at. And one of those is actually this year Tableau at scale. And at scale means to us is analytics for everyone. Is there somebody that is not very analytical, and can we put tools in their hands to make it easy for them, right? And then that basically onboards them into kind of the desktop experience that you've been able to drag and drop. But can we get people started a little bit easier? And then analytics in any app and process, organization-wide deployments, and then self-service data management. And so analytics for everyone, what does that mean? And so there's a couple things there. One's from an engagement, that we want you to be able to get to your data no matter what device you're on. If that's mobile, if it's through a web browser, if it's on tablet, our mobile. Our mobile story has always been good, and they completely rewrote everything from the ground up. And I think they've hit the mark, which is great. The other thing in the bottom left-hand corner, traditional. Okay, grid reporting, are you serious? We've always shied away from that. We told customers, no, we don't want to do that. We've had so many customers say, hey, if you guys just gave us a little bit of support with some of the traditional stuff, I can retire these 2 or 3 other systems. Okay, finally we said, okay, and this is going to be the year where we have more and more of that support for the traditional reporting. Okay. Also, visual analytics is at the center of everything that we do. So there's a whole lot of innovation there around making it easier for people to see and understand their data. And then over on the right-hand side, kind of the smart analytics, if you will, natural language processing, right? The generation, and then also the query, and then also something that's called augmented for now. And we'll come back closer to November after our conference, and we'll walk you guys through something pretty freaking incredible if you don't make it to our conference. And so, but those are kind of key areas. And then bring analytics to any app and process. Can we embed Tableau? Can we make it extensible, right? Can we make it, expose third-party ecosystems? Like we saw something the other day with one of our partners called VoiceBase that takes the call center data and processes it. Inside of Tableau, they actually have, you can do the analytics, and then you can actually get to the actual voice recording. And you can see it, and as you're doing the analysis, you can hear the call. It's pretty amazing the way that they've embedded all that together. And if we didn't have desktop extensions, they wouldn't have been able to do that. Actions, be able to take actions on the data and be able to collaborate across different analytics use cases, and then kind of automate it. Can we find things in the data, in your different data sources, that's really interesting, that maybe you need to be aware of, but you don't see it as part of the current visualization. Okay. And then obviously when you're going at massive scale, better, easier security. We just released Hyper, where you can actually have encrypted databases now. Hyper extracts can be encrypted. Really cool thing about that, if you know anything about it from just a technical perspective, encryption usually slows queries down exponentially. And the dev team has actually implemented, they're thinking about patenting, submitting a patent for the way they did it. And the query hit is less than 3%, which is pretty amazing. Okay. And then manageability and scalability. And then also enable self-service data management. Continue to build out a really massive development team, and all they do is data connections. So there's constantly new databases that come online. There's new capability that our database vendors and partners are releasing. So we're always trying to make sure that we keep on the forefront of that. Prep, right? And so we just came out with Prep Catalog as well, which is now kind of the enterprise solution for you to be able to schedule, publish prep flows. So then that way your IT administration and kind of your Tableau server admin can see what's happening. Oh, conductor. I'm sorry. What did I say? Catalog. I'll look at it. Thank you, conductor. And then something that's coming out later this year, data catalog. So. Okay. Any questions? So, 2019.1. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Does Tableau Prep, are you able to connect to Tableau Server Extract here?
That you can do.
The data sources published.
Yeah.
Not,
Okay.
once you publish the data source, it's essentially kind of becomes immutable. Right? You have to, whatever data sources live under that, you want to just basically like redo that.
Okay.
And so, with 2019.1, I'm sorry, another question?
Will there be any updates around like enforcing the password, or like for a user to like have stronger passwords as opposed to you can just have a single character password at this moment?
Yeah, I think he's talking about what we call entropic passwords. An entropic password, I think, is something.
Yeah. So there's a lot of security enhancements that are coming down the pipe that are much needed.
I think that's probably the best way.
Is that the best way to put it?
Yeah. We hear you.
Yeah.
Just like.
Yeah. The team is definitely aware. So with 2019.1, which just came out last week, Ask Data is our natural language query engine, which I will demonstrate here in a second, and then Prep Conductor. Yeah, thanks for keeping me honest there. Which is the centralized service, right, to be able to publish prep flows out at enterprise level. Before, you as kind of a desktop user just had to go and run your flows whenever. If you needed to run something at 6 a.m. in the morning, that means you got to go click the button at 6 a.m. in the morning, which is not a good situation. Now you can actually publish those out, schedule those, and then come in and see if those were successful. And then also export to PowerPoint, which is it's incredible how many people stood up and cheered at a conference when we announced this. It's like you work so hard, you release something really cool, and they're like, yeah, I can export to PowerPoint. But we get it, we do it too. The new mobile app was completely written from the ground up, and I'll show you some of that here in a second. And then also has interactive offline views, and from a retail perspective, that's huge for our industry for sure. And then we also had nested sorting improvements and Google AdWords connectors, which we've been asked for a long time. So, who all has downloaded 2019.1? Anybody? Awesome. All right, so let's see something in action, and let's see how this will work. Let me refresh the browser here. So first thing, this is a large retail data set that we have internally, something that we think hopefully at one point in the near future we'll outsource this, outsource this for people. We'll see if we get through our legal team. But it's something that we've created, particularly to show data at pretty massive scale. And so definitely a lot bigger than our standard demo that comes with a Superstore, if you're aware of that. So what this is a data source that was published, and it's just as the name says, Ask Data. I can say sum of, and then I'll just start typing cells, okay? And then it will start to change based upon some magic in the vaccines. When I hit that, boom, I get one answer, period, okay? And so I just ask for some of net cells, okay? And now what I can do is I really want to see that by city, okay? Hit enter, and now all of a sudden it knows that when city, the best way to actually look at that is through a map. Kind of build in the same Tableau kind of visual best practices into this to begin to answer my questions. And the whole kind of goal of Ask Data is to put analytics in the hands of people that can just ask questions, and they don't have to, go out and go to a dashboard and just interface with it the way that they would actually, right? And then if I started to type in Washington, something starts to happen. You can see where it says, are you talking about the city in Washington? Or it actually, or do I want to filter the color maybe to Washington? Or did I really want to just kind of filter it in the state of Washington? So I was really talking state. So it's the combination of two things, intelligent query understanding, which is two things, ambiguity resolution. So things like recent and near. If I say, show me all of our customers near Atlanta. If I say near, it may be 50 miles, right? Carl's definition of near may be 100. So can we give you results and then allow you through some intelligent filtering to actually change what that definition is and give you exactly what you wanted? In this case, it actually started to resolve. It knows because it's interrogated the data, and what it did to interrogate the data was I just took this was earlier today, I saved this data source. It's a live query data source going to Google BigQuery, and it would actually just start going down through and interrogating all the different data. It took a couple minutes for this to run in the background, which is pretty amazing. That's all I did to get this to work. So if you have your data sources, both Tableau data sources or live query data sources on your server, you upgraded to 19.1, boom, this works. Okay. And so something that's kind of interesting, and I want to see this to come to desktop. And if you use Tableau Prep, you'll recognize this. As I start to mouse over the different dimensions, I'm starting to see kind of the different channel types. I can see a sample of cities. And I can see a histogram in the background of some of the most common data values there. Right? Which is pretty awesome. If I didn't know anything about this, right, then I could come and I could start asking the questions and understanding a little bit about the data source itself. Okay. Let's take, I'm going to take this. Now I'm going to say, I looked at brand, so I kind of, I said before I'm a fan of Nike, but I'm going to say brand. Let's just look by brand first. Okay, so but there's Nike, most cells in this fake data scenario. And now, if I wanted to filter this, I can do some of the same things. I can keep only, I can exclude, kind of like I do with Tableau today. If I wanted to take that, if I wanted to say, now, filter by brand, and then to Nike, because it knows it's the first one within the context, but it could be any of those, then I could say by department. Okay. Now, let me back up. I'm going to spell department. Okay. It's kind of smart enough to know that, hey, dummy, Jeff, you're not a very good typer. So I think you mean one of these here, and I can just select on those. Now all of a sudden I can start to see that information there presented. And if I remove, just say, maybe the brand here, then I can see that the top department was men's athletic apparel. So without even knowing, right, a couple things. Start interrogating the data. We knew there was a lot of sales in Seattle, which is actually at our headquarters, little FYI. But then also, too, that the men's athletic apparel is the most sales. Okay. I'm not a very analytical guy. I just needed to ask a couple questions. And one thing that's kind of cool is I can actually save this. And if I was an analyst, I'm going to just say ATUG 2. Get rid of the pop-up blocker. Thank you, Google. But now I'm in Tableau Desktop, the web editing version. I can hit web edit here. Now drag and drop, just like desktop. I didn't have to go into a different system. I didn't have to move my data in order to get natural language query. It's just there and it's part of the integrated platform. Questions?
So is the ask data limited to the development of the dashboard, or is it also for the end user who's consuming the dashboard either through the web or mobile or other
So it's to the end user that has access to server. So here, this is the screen. I just went to the data source. And the data source has this Ask Data field here with suggestions. And you can see these begin to be built as it interrogated the underlying data. So these could be kind of interesting. Right. It's like this one doesn't make sense. So this one wants cities, we're sitting out the border, different things like that. How to get people started to understand the different concepts.
You guys have it in your roadmap though, maybe like hypothetically you've got a retail sales dashboard, it's for the managers on their phone, it's the daily flash, here's your sales for today, and it's like, want to see top products sold. Could you type that, like, what were the top items sold today?
Yeah, so this is V1.
No, I know, it's fine.
Just came out last week.
I prefaced with roadmap.
I asked the same thing about four or 5 months ago. Like, this is great. It's like, if I can use language, and I'm walking through, hey, what are my, Tyson chicken sales
Right.
for the last week? Okay. Yes, it would understand the context of your data, what last week was, but then also too, I'd be able to get those results
Right.
on the device. So
Yeah, 'cause the way
things like that are being worked on now.
Great.
The first part was, how do we make it seamless? How do we make it where it's alive? And the one thing I didn't show you, this is kind of,